You're listening to News Hour with Rebecca Kesby live from London, and another story that's just broken in the past few minutes. The US Vice President, Joe Biden, has apologized to the United Arab Emirates, saying he never meant to imply it was supporting al-Qaeda fighters. It's the second time in 2 days that Mr. Biden has had to call a key coalition partner to clarify his remarks. On Saturday, he apologized to the Turkish President, Recep Tayyip Erdogan, after saying that Ankara had helped foster the growth of Islamic State. The BBC's Washington correspondent says it's not unusual for Joe Biden to speak his mind, but recently he's found himself backpedaling fast multiple times. More on that story coming up in the next few hours. Now, air guitar fans everywhere, brace yourselves, because we have a treat for you now. Led Zeppelin is widely considered to be one of the most influential bands of all time. Robert Plant, John Paul Jones, John Bonham, who of course tragically died, and of course Jimmy Page, lead guitarist and creator of some of the most famous guitar riffs of all time. He said he'd never write an autobiography, but he has just released a book of pictures with hardly any words in at all. And I've been looking at it with him and, of course, talking about that riff, voted the best riff of all time by BBC listeners. Whole lot of love.
You know, I knew what a good riff it was. I knew when I came up with it, it was almost like a voodoo charm. It's the sort of riff that has such an intensity. I know lots of musicians love playing it. I thought it would be novel to present a life in pictures, which starts off with like the earliest image that I know of me. I'm actually in church.
Yeah, let's look at it, because this is such a great picture.
Yeah. You see, there I am as a choir boy, looking most angelic. Well, I'm in church, and you hear a lot of black musicians say, yeah, well, it starts in church, man. So, well, you know, I thought, well, here we are, this starts in church in Epsom in Surrey in England.
You've got a lovely caption here to go with this angelic picture, as you say. Wouldn't look out of place on a Christmas card, but it just says at the bottom here, it might get loud.
Yeah.
And it's just in there.
Yeah. Well, it sort of got louder. How I learned was from records. There was only a short time that the rock and roll was actually played on the radio in England, and then it was like almost banned, and they tried to replace it literally with calypso music. But it was too late. The damage was done. Everyone was infected. The ones who became the musicians were totally seduced by what was coming out of the speakers from these sort of rockabilly guitarists, and then it sort of moves through to blues as well. You had to learn it yourself and come up with your own interpretation. You know, I wasn't just listening to the blues. I was listening to rock and roll as much as blues, and you'd find the people who were just doing blues were like sort of purists looking down their nose at rock and roll. I didn't look down my nose at anything. I just really wanted to know how it was done.
Session guitarist, which is the guy, I suppose, you know, that kind of has to play all sorts of different styles of music at the drop of a hat.
You know, that's exactly what it was. And it was part of how I played, because I listened to folk music. I was listening to Indian music before the Beatles incorporated it. And I was listening to Arabic music. I was listening to classical music too. The common denominator to it all was that I was just a guitar junkie. Anything with 6 strings, what can people do with it? Wow, that's just amazing. All of it.
I mean, there's some some lovely pictures of you and the guys from Led Zeppelin wearing quite flowery blouses and lacy feminine sort of attire, but then you had this quite heavy masculine sound of the band. Was that always part of it, this kind of light and shade idea?
Well, some of the clothes, when you say they're feminine, sometimes they are women's clothes. So, yeah, because they're the only things you could get. I mean, we're quite slight in those days, and you couldn't get stuff to fit you properly. So, yes.
Well, look, you're in a pink top here with a lovely scarf.
Yeah, I had like a crushed velvet pink suit. You can see it on there, the jacket on it.
These are the days with Led Zeppelin when you were writing this music that has gone on to be absolutely influential in just about everything that came after it.
Yeah.
In all different genres of music as well.
Yeah, exactly. The sort of recording techniques, songwriting as such, the approach to the guitar, so it's quite experimental. It's the acoustic, it's the electric, it's playing it with a bow, for heaven's sake. If that's inspired other musicians, that's it. That's a lifetime's achievement to have passed it on.
And what about the sort of brotherhood within the band? Creatively, you kind of inspired each other, didn't you, in the band?
I think it was very much the case that when we play together, it's just so instant that you just look and go, well, yes, I've never felt anything like this before. Everyone's thinking the same thing. There was creative freedom, but there was a sort of codependency here that really made every single one of us just go right up the ladder as far as our own expectations and what we could do because of the support system within the others. That's why it was so key to have everyone in the group a real sort of master musician, if you like. I can hear it calling me the way it used to do.
And of course, the tragedy of the death of John Bonham must have affected that. Did you kind of feel that creatively you couldn't ever get back to what you'd been after that?
What, as a group? Yeah, because it wasn't the sort of band where you would go on there and play everything note for note perfect like the album. Because there was so much that was made up spontaneously on the night, it just wouldn't have seemed an honest thing to do. To replace John Bonham, be disrespectful to the input of the play.
Famously, I think you've said that if you ever did do an autobiography, you'd want it to be published once you moved on to the stairway to heaven in the sky. Why did you want to do this, especially focusing on the pictures?
I've been approached from quite a number of publishing houses to do a book, and I know that I would have a fascinating book. However, if you're going to run into sort of lawyers wanting to know what you're writing, I can't be bothered with all that. Posthumously, you can really tell the story without any intervention or problems, and you can also not have to promote it. I like the idea of that. However, for somebody who didn't like to have his photograph taken in the first place, under any circumstances, at any age, I sort of managed to come up with a bunch of photographic images, and, well, it's okay, it's interesting.
It certainly is. The legendary Jimmy Page of Led Zeppelin, bringing us to an end for this edition of News Hour. Thanks for listening.
BBC World Service.
Witness tells the story of great moments in world history.
The former Indian Prime Minister, Rajiv Gandhi, has been assassinated.
The ball just froze, and then everybody started to stampede and ran in all kinds of different directions.
History told by the people who were there.
I thought I had had a rendezvous with my destiny.
Witness on the BBC World Service every day.